Just 3 months before the Wright brothers made their first flight in December 1903, in the White River Delta town of Newport, Arkansas, a boy who would earn his own place in aviation history was born. Cornelius Robinson Coffey experienced his first airplane ride when he was 13 and knew immediately that these flying machines were going to be an important part of his life. What he couldn't have known then was that his life would become an important part of aviation history. Coffey left Arkansas when he was 22, headed for Chicago to attend an auto mechanics school. Not because he wanted to be an auto mechanic, but because he figured there were a lot of similarities in automobile and airplane engines. He was right. He and another African-American man, John Robinson, tried to get into a few aviation programs in Chicago, but were turned away because of their race. So they built an airplane with a motorcycle engine and taught themselves to fly. Eventually, the threat of lawsuits caused the Curtiss Wright School of Aviation to admit Coffey and Robinson. They graduated at the top of their class, and Coffey became the first African American to hold both a mechanic's and a pilot's license simultaneously. The school changed its policy, inviting them to teach all black classes, which they did for a while. They soon started the Coffey Flying School on a small airstrip in the Chicago suburb of Oaklawn, and founded the Challenger Air Pilots Association. Coffey hired great instructors, including a beautiful young woman named Willa Brown, the first black woman to become a licensed pilot in America. She became Cornelius's wife for a short time. Decades later, in 1982, the Smithsonian Institute's National Air and Space Museum opened its Black Wings exhibit, and Cornelius Coffey was among the aviation pioneers invited to attend. Smithsonian curator Von Hardesty recalls Coffey's stories about the hardships of being a black aviator.
And Cornelius Coffey, who joined us in that 1982 reception, he said when you flew in those days, in the Depression years, you never knew what kind of reception you would get when you landed at a field, whether they would even refuel your aircraft. It's just an unbelievable context that would be so strange to us today.
In 1939, Coffey, at the urging of a local newspaper editor, formed the National Airmen's Association of America. The main goal was to send black aviators to the military and expose people of color to aviation. War with Germany was looming, and President Roosevelt wanted to train civilian pilots for induction into the Army Air Corps. A senator named Harry Truman went to bat for Coffey and his partners, and soon their school was one of 7 all-black flight schools, and the only one not affiliated with a university. Many of the famous Tuskegee Airmen, or Red Tails, got their first taste of flying at Coffey's school.
A lot of Tuskegee Airmen who didn't get accepted anywhere else, Coffey had his doors open for everyone, but especially those who were rejected in other places.
Coffey was not a supporter of the idea to form that unit because of its racially segregated status, but military tradition prevailed. Many of the decorated heroes from Tuskegee would later credit Cornelius for teaching them to fly. While his students won medals and worldwide fame, Coffey quietly carried on with his work at Harlem and later taught aviation mechanics in Chicago area high schools. He was the first African American to have an aerial navigation intersection named after him by the FAA. The Coffey Fix is a waypoint on the Victor 7 airway, guiding pilots to safe landings at Chicago's Midway Airport, runway 31 left. He also designed a carburetor heater that prevents icing. Similar devices are still in use today. Cornelius Coffey continued to fly until 1992, when he was 89. He died at age 91 on March 2nd of 1994. His lifetime of aviation achievements, struggle against adversity, and the power of his will earned him his place in aviation history and the honor of induction into the Arkansas Aviation Hall of Fame.